Have you ever looked at someone you love and realized you don't know who they are anymore? That's where Michael and Sarah found themselves. 10 years of marriage, one little boy, Ethan. They weren't fighting anymore. They were simply quiet. That quiet that doesn't feel peaceful, but hollow. So they decided to do something strange. They planned one last vacation. A week before their divorce papers were to be signed, they packed their bags and drove to a small coastal town in Maine. Not to fix their marriage, but to give their son one last memory before breaking his world in two. As they reached the coast, Ethan shouted from the back seat, "Look, Daddy!" The ocean. And for a moment, Michael smiled again. A real smile, not forced, not heavy, just human. But Sarah looked out the window and whispered to herself, "It's too late, isn't it?" The first 2 days felt almost normal. They walked on the beach, shared ice cream, laughed at Ethan's sandcastles. Sarah watched Michael teaching Ethan to skip stones. His laughter echoed against the water, and something twisted inside her. Not love, not hate, just the ache of something that once felt infinite, now fading quietly. That night, around a bonfire, Ethan looked up and asked, "Mom, will we still go on vacations when you and Dad live in different houses?" The fire cracked. Neither spoke. Because how do you tell a child that his family is ending, while his heart still believes it's forever? Sarah's eyes glistened. Michael looked into the flames, wishing the heat could burn away his guilt. The next morning, they stopped by a small cafe by the sea. It was run by an old woman named Eleanor. Silver hair, deep eyes, a face shaped by both pain and peace. She looked at them kindly and said, "You two look like people trying to remember how to smile." They laughed awkwardly. But when Ethan went outside to feed the seagulls, Eleanor leaned forward. Her voice softened. "You're divorcing, aren't you?" Sarah froze. How did you know?" Eleanor smiled faintly. "I was you. 30 years ago. I had a son too, and I thought leaving his father would finally set me free. But I didn't realize. Divorce doesn't end the pain. It rearranges it. When you love someone, you don't just share years. You share memory, their voice, their smell, the way they said your name. All of it lives inside you. When you tear that bond apart, you aren't just leaving them, you're tearing a piece of yourself. People think divorce is freedom, but sometimes it's just another kind of loneliness. I wish someone had told me this, that peace doesn't come from walking away. It comes from understanding yourself. You can't change another person. But when you change, the relationship changes too. You stop reacting. You start seeing. And sometimes that's enough to heal what's broken. Eleanor's eyes welled up. I kept waiting for my husband to change, to listen, to care. But I never asked myself what I was doing wrong. By the time I realized it, my son had stopped calling me Mom. He called me Eleanor. Every choice carries loss. If you stay, you lose what might have been. If you leave, you lose what once was. But peace comes only when you stop divorcing yourself from yourself. That night, neither Michael nor Sarah could sleep. Eleanor's words kept echoing inside their heads. Michael whispered, "I don't even know who we are anymore." Sarah turned to him, voice trembling. "Maybe we stopped being curious about each other." He reached for her hand, the first touch in months, and for a moment, it didn't feel broken. It felt fragile, alive. They talked about their pain, their mistakes, their silence for hours. And when morning came, something small but real had shifted. Back home, things didn't magically fix themselves, but they began to try. Slowly, quietly, every day. Michael stopped interrupting. Sarah stopped assuming. They learned to say, "I feel," instead of "you always." And Ethan, he began to smile again. The house filled with laughter once more. Small moments, cooking together, walking the dog, watching the sunset, became their therapy. And something beautiful happened. Ethan's grades began to rise. He started believing again. In love, in family, in himself. Years later, Michael and Sarah sat side by side, watching Ethan, now a grown man, walk across the stage in his white coat. He had become a doctor, not just of medicine, but of healing. And when he looked at his parents, he smiled in a way only a child who's seen love survive can smile. After the ceremony, Sarah whispered, "I can't believe how far we've come." Michael smiled. Eleanor was right. Divorce doesn't heal pain, but understanding does. That night, Sarah wrote a letter. She mailed it to Eleanor's cafe, but it came back, marked closed, no forwarding address. She smiled softly. Maybe Eleanor had finally found her peace too. Sometimes love doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be understood. And sometimes the most beautiful thing we can do for love is stay.